Hello, everyone. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Zander Kempf, who is the founder and CEO of Clear Summit Investments. Zander, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, pleasure is all mine to have you on. Really excited to dive straight into your background, journey, learn a lot more about the business, and hopefully take away some advice, which is going to provide very useful for people listening at home. So, without further ado, shall we make a start?
Let's do it.
Amazing, perfect. So, Zander, if we could start off by understanding the earlier stages and years of your career and journey, as well as some challenges you went through getting to the position you're in today.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in rural New Hampshire, up near Boston, but up in the mountains. And ever since a young age, I found all of my fulfillment and happiness from nature and being outside. Growing up, I remember my mom would kick us out of the house in the morning, say, "All right, go be outside, don't be in the house, come back at dinner time." And we go wander in the woods or wander in the swamp. But that was where, that was what fulfilled me, was being outside in nature and exploring, climbing around in the mud and that sort of stuff. So that was something that really stuck with me. My whole life, I always loved camping and rock climbing and mountaineering and hiking and all these things, just being outside. And so when I started building my company, Clear Summit, I had, part of the name for it was, okay, I've got the goal of hiking the tallest mountain on every continent, and I want to build a company that enables a lifestyle of freedom and travel and adventure, and that would enable me to do something like that. So I named my business Clear Summit Investments. So that was about 8 years ago. I studied chemical engineering in school and joined the military as a paratrooper. While I was in the military, I started investing in real estate. And first, it was just looking for something outside of the stock market and, as a way to diversify. And the more I dove into it, the more I saw the power that real estate had to provide cash flow, to provide passive income, to leverage and provide exponential returns. So I dove in more and more. And by the time I was getting out of the military, I knew that was that was my thing. That was what I wanted to do. I moved out to Hawaii to work for a large developer as a project manager. So we were doing high-rise hotel, industrial subdivisions, cemetery, all kinds of wild projects, but it was an amazing experience because I got to see all of these different real estate niches for really large projects and just got to learn the development process and how, a much bigger company would do it. So branched off from them, continued building Clear Summit. Originally we were started with the smallest deals with fix and flips and small multifamily, and then we're scaling to larger and larger multifamily deals, always with the strategy of finding something that was severely distressed, whether that was bad tenants, bad management, the building was run down, anything like that. But some kind of issue where there's value add potential. Maybe it can be expanded. We can add some units or convert a garage or whatever that might be. And then with the idea of, okay, let's buy something that's undervalued. Let's come in and make it realize that value. And then we'll stabilize it, meaning get the tenants in place, do a cash out refinance. We can pull all our money out, but then we still own the asset and it cash flows. And then we can take our money and go on to the next deal. So I did that over and over and over. I built up 23 multifamily buildings, and then kind of got to the point where, the interest rates during COVID started to kick up. The competition was extremely high and the numbers just didn't quite make sense anymore. So I started to look at different asset classes, and I wanted something, we were growing consistently, but growing pretty linearly. And I wanted something where we could grow exponentially, where we had like an edge. So we looked across the whole real estate market and we came across RV and glamping. And this was this really cool niche that tied really well into my personal passion of being outdoors and adventurous and, exploring the world. But it was also this really interesting area where there was almost no institutional groups, no real professional groups. 88% of these properties were owned by individual mom and pop investors or operators, meaning there was lacked a lot of professional systems. It lacked professional marketing and dynamic pricing and nice websites and all these things that exist in every other area of industry. We actually liquidated the entire multifamily portfolio, sold all 23 buildings, and rolled all of the money into this RV and glamping strategy. Brought an amazing team around to execute it, and we are now in the process of rolling up 15 of these RV and glamping resorts.
Wow, amazing. What a journey. What a journey. What part of that journey do you think you learned the most from? Where did you feel that you had that shift where you went from your traditional way of thinking, perhaps how we're generally programmed, to that entrepreneurial clicked that actually said, hang on a second, this is the way to go about it? What moment do you think it clicked, and where did you learn the most in that journey?
There's probably 500 spots where I learned some lesson along the way. But talking specifically on the entrepreneurial journey and starting very early, it was probably one of the first properties that I bought when I actually closed. I remember I closed remotely, so I bought this. My very first house was a $45,000 single family house in Oklahoma City, and it's a $9,000 down payment. I met the notary in a Starbucks and signed my docs in a Starbucks. And I remember walking back to my car. It was just this like euphoric feeling of, wow, I just bought a house. Like, it was just such a foreign concept, but I just bought a house. And not only that, but I bought a house where the mortgage was $250 a month and the tenant was paying me $450 a month. At
Wow.
$200 a month, that was just profit. And that idea that, wow, I can just buy this thing and then it sends me a check every single month forever was just that was pretty mind blowing. So that was when I
Amazing.
saw that power of, wow, this is something that you can really grow and build up that income stream.
Absolutely. Amazing. Amazing. And so what does your role look like now? Obviously, the company is growing year on year. It's only looking to achieve big goals. But what does your role look like nowadays? Are you very much focused on the development and the business growth, or are you still focused in working with the team in the ins and outs? What does your role look like, and perhaps even a typical day?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the CEO of the company. We've built up our team. We've got about 20 people, sometimes 25, depending on how many construction guys we've got going. But an amazing team. We have a whole marketing department that does marketing to bring in investors because we're raising capital for our fund. We have an operations team of running the construction projects. So Eric, one of my partners, is a licensed general contractor, also an amazing developer for the last 15 years. So he came on and runs our construction crews. We've got excavators and trucks and everything that are helping expand and develop these properties. Um, so, managing the team, my biggest focus is probably on acquisition. So I help source deals, negotiate on deals, and then do due diligence, get them closed. I put a lot of focus on debt sourcing. So, getting the loans to be able to buy these, and then asset management. So we outsource property management. So it's the day-to-day operations. Found some amazing industry partners that have been managing for the last 20 years. So they run the day-to-day of the resorts. But we oversee them from the asset management side, meaning we're setting strategy for the properties. We're looking at when to refinance, how to reposition the properties. So that same exact value add plan that I mentioned that I started in multifamily, we
Yeah.
do the same thing here. We look for something that is distressed, underutilized, missing some revenue opportunities. Maybe it can be expanded. And so we buy those properties knowing that we can go increase the revenue. We can decrease expenses. We can increase the profits. And that's one of my bigger roles too, is executing on that value add strategy.
Amazing, amazing. Now, coming very nicely onto the next topic, then it is industry trends. So, what are some trends or market shifts you're noticing currently, perhaps that have happened in about last year, 2 years? What do you see the future looking like, and how do you think those shifts are going to pan out? And how can people navigate the change that's constantly happening? What's your thoughts, or perhaps some advice on that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so what happened the last couple of years was interest rates skyrocketed, which made cap rates all jump up. And a lot of people got into trouble with those. Luckily, we had built our portfolio not on razor thin margins. So when that happened, we still had plenty of equity because we always bought really great deals. But what that will look like in the future, it's hard to know what is going to happen with interest rates, what's going to happen with cap rates. My whole investment strategy is to not speculate on the market. So we look at where are things right now? What is our downside scenario of, if things do get worse, if interest rates go higher, if cap rates go higher, what does each deal look like? And are we protected there? Do we have, and really all comes down to cash flow. Your values, as long as you have cash flow to cover your debt, you can ride out any dip in the market because you're covering your debt. You get into trouble when you have minimal cash flow. And then if there's a small dip, well, now you're upside down. Or if you have short-term debt. So you have to, if you have a 3 or 4 year loan term, well, okay, now you can't ride out the market because the market might be at a bottom when your loan is up, and now you have to refi at a lower value. So we do longer, usually 7 or 10 year terms. So we can always ride that out. And then we don't have to care so much on the value necessarily. We can really just focus on the cash flow, knowing that the long-term value will we'll get there. In the outdoor hospitality world specifically, which is, that's the area that I now know, it's a booming, it's starting, but there's this massive wave of interest that is pouring into the space. The number of glamping resorts that are being developed is exploding. There's more and more big players that are coming into the area, and we're definitely early to the party. We're grabbing as much market share as we can. We're rolling up 15 of these resorts this year, and we'll bundle this nice stabilized portfolio. As more and more groups come into the space, that will likely compress cap rates, meaning our values will go up. But we don't need that to happen because we're buying a bunch of really high cash flowing deals that we are value adding and creating more cash flow from. When/if the cap rates compress because there's more big players in the space, then we'll be in a great position from having all of this whole portfolio that just appreciated.
Amazing. Now, a trend I wanted to get your thoughts on is obviously this trend blown up last 10, 50 years, and it's only going to get even bigger. And that's power of social media, right? Online presence, social media, content. So what is your overall thoughts on social media? Do you see it in a positive? Do you see it in a negative? What are some ways businesses can use social media to enhance their operations, sales, and drive business growth? What's your overall take? And perhaps what are some areas business owners need to be mindful of to not get caught in pitfalls and traps?
Yeah, I mean, it totally depends on what your goals are for the business. I think some businesses can massively benefit from the power of social media because it is free attention, but you have to be willing to put the effort in to make it a high quality, because that's the biggest thing. The algorithms nowadays, a lot of people are putting out content. In order to stand out, you have to do quality content. I mean, everyone knows with AI, you could go and make AI generated posts and videos and text and everything, but that's not going to get you anywhere because everybody can do that and the quality is really, really low. But on the flip side, some businesses, depending on their business model, might not need social media at all, and it is a big time effort. So I'd say really evaluate what are the pros and cons, and is it going to help you hit your target market in the way that you want to hit them? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
What about perhaps more personal to you? Have you seen social media be a positive and a net plus? Have you seen it perhaps not be as beneficial to what your model is? What's your perhaps personal take on social media, and has it been beneficial in the growth of the business?
Yeah, so I focus largely on LinkedIn. So we post, usually once or twice a day on LinkedIn, and definitely put a big focus there. That does help us network, make connections with people in the industry, brokers, lenders, potential property sellers, and then also investors get to see and kind of follow along our journey, see what we're doing, and really understand what Clear Summit is all about and these awesome properties that we're doing. So that does help people connect with us. That is something that we did put a lot of effort into building out and helping share. I don't really focus on Instagram or Facebook. It's just kind of a different model than LinkedIn. However, for our actual resorts, we do really heavily focus on Facebook and Instagram. And some of our resorts have 10, 20, 30,000 followers because they're really aesthetic, mountain resort, log cabins by a river, cool geodesic dome, something funky like that people like to follow along with. But it's a benefit to us because now that's another booking source that we don't necessarily have to pay Airbnb or VRBO or one of these other booking sites where we have to pay a fee to get bookings from.
Amazing. And another sub-trend of the back social media is perhaps founder-led content, where a lot more founders, CEOs are kind of coming away from perhaps being in an office and actually coming out on camera and kind of presenting themselves as head of the business, showcasing what they're about, showing their expertise, being more vocal and active on social media. Is that something you feel you're already doing, perhaps something you wanted to do? Do you not really see the benefit of that? Or where do you kind of line founder-led content in terms of perhaps getting yourself out there more on social media and people seeing you rather than what you have to offer and what the business is in terms of logos, brands, and things like that?
I think that's the only way to do it. I think you have to lead with the personal story, lead with purpose, and that's what people connect with. Generally, I don't think people usually care about following a company. They want to follow an individual. They want to follow a mission, something that they connect with, and whether it's aspirational or whatever it may be. But that's what I've done, at least on LinkedIn. Again, we don't really focus on Instagram. If I were to do that, then that would be the focus. It would be talking about me and my story, how I built the company, how I'm managing and leading things, tied in with the flavor of here's the resorts we're doing, but keeping me as the figurehead.
Amazing. Now, if we can hone in now more on the business side of things. So what are some areas of the business It could be operationally, it could be any aspect that are going really well and you're going strength to strength. And perhaps what are some areas of the business that you're having some challenges and perhaps some hurdles to overcome? Could be at present, perhaps you already might have solutions to those problems, but what is your overall take on maybe on business side of things?
Yeah, probably the thing that's going the best right now is our people. Led hadn't done this in the past because I have, an engineering mindset, which is very analytical. But last year I came back from a mastermind group that I'm in, and we talked about leading with purpose and identifying the A players in your life, the people that are really exceptional, high quality, and that can drag you along rather than you needing to drag them. And I came back from that and I reached out to the few people in my life that I felt like were my A players. And I led with purpose rather than just talking numbers and money and opportunity. I talked about the concept, what we were doing of um, building this infinite hold cash flowing fund, and a fund that helps people experience nature and get outdoors and adventure and being able to create freedom for ourselves as well. That people bought into that. And I was really lucky that that was how it transpired. But now I have an amazing team around me and everyone's excited and motivated and off to the races.
Amazing, amazing. And then guess on the flip side now, turning the table on its head, some areas of business that you feel you're having some challenges and perhaps some problems and some areas of not concern, I would say, but perhaps things that you're constantly improving. Where would you pinpoint that aspect of the business?
I mean, it's a growing business, so it's ever evolving challenges. By growing, you're always doing new things and learning. I think the biggest focus that we are working on right now is systematizing. So being able to create checklists and systems and explainer videos so our staff can operate things rather than everything being kind of centralized at the top. And
Yep.
that way we're enabling more people to be able to execute, think for themselves, have the responsibility. And ultimately that'll help the company grow, I think, exponentially because they can now operate as if they were me or my partner Eric, um, and then that also then frees us up at the leadership level to then go do the next
Absolutely.
level task and grow the business even further.
Absolutely. Very well said. Very well said, Xander. Now, I guess coming on to the future, right? So what does the future look like for yourself, Xander, for the business? Do you have some big goals on the vision board that you and your business partner are looking to achieve, or is it very much impact based and more, the sort of legacy you're building and leaving behind? What's really the goals driving you towards the future?
Yeah. So right now we're working on this Real Freedom Fund project. So along the same mission of Clear Summit of building, lifetime income from real estate, we are doing a single fund that roll up of the 15 glamping resorts. That is the Real Freedom Fund. So we are creating real freedom from real estate. So that's freedom of time, money, location, and purpose. We're buying these 15 resorts. They're all going to be near national parks and other major destination areas. They're all cash flowing, and we pay out monthly distributions on the first of every month. So, and that's an infinite hold. When you invest in, we'll do a cash out refi that returns all your capital after a few years. But then you keep your shares and you keep getting monthly distributions in perpetuity. So it really is a lifetime cash flow asset. And this is the only project, the only fund that we are working on right now. So our whole team's fully dedicated to this. In order to purchase these 15 resorts, we're raising about 30 million of capital and aside from the debt. So we're doing this 30 mil capital raise. We're buying these 15 resorts. That's happening this year. And honestly, past that, this is all we have our sights on. So we'll reorient once that's complete, whether we want to do another fund or focus more on new construction or whatever that might be. But at the moment, it's completing the Real Freedom Fund and executing it to the best of our ability.
Amazing, amazing. And Xander, just to finish up on some advice. So, what is the biggest piece of advice you've learned in your journey of entrepreneurship and being a business owner, or perhaps the biggest piece of advice you wish you knew when you started your journey that might have 5x, 10x, the growth that you are at now, or perhaps somebody listening in who's perhaps starting on their journey, which might pose really valuable for them?
Yeah, I'll go to my favorite one, and we have a daily sync meeting with my team, and it's the whole basic point of the call is to talk about this. Jay Popson has an awesome book called The One Thing, and it's a concept of if you're doing 5 things, even if it's to the best of your ability, at most you can put 20% of your effort into each one of those 5 things. Versus if you're doing one single thing, you put 100% of your effort into that, you can get really, really good at that and potentially better than anybody else in the world because now you are putting 100% of your life force and energy and everything into that one thing. So in entrepreneurship, it's really easy, call it the entrepreneur's curse of, you start to see opportunity everywhere. And it's like, oh, that sounds like a good way to make money. Or I want to try this startup too, or let me invest over here. But then you get so spread out that you can't be effective anywhere and nothing really progresses. So the best advice I could give is pick one thing and go be exceptional at it. Put everything you have into it and aggressively cut out everything else and don't do anything but that one thing. If you need to pivot, that's fine, but pivot to one thing and leave the other thing behind so you're still only doing a single task. I think that would get somebody multiple times farther than otherwise.
Amazing. Wow, that is very powerful advice, Zander. Thank you very much for that. And a massive thank you for your time today on the podcast episode. I really enjoyed myself. I found a lot of value, and I'm sure everyone watching at home has found a lot of value. So big thank you, Zander. Any closing comments for people listening at home, potential investors, clients, anybody listening? To closing comment, if you may.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Would love to connect with any of you. You can find me on LinkedIn at Zander Kempf or our website, clearsummitinvestments.com.
Amazing. Well, Zander, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. See everyone next time.